Hello and welcome. This is the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast. I'm your host and astro bestie, Chani Nicholas. In this episode, we are talking about the week of November 4th. Now, we know that in the world, there's a couple of things going on this week. But I got to say, astrologically, we're coming off of some major astrology, and next week there will be a big, old, wild full moon in Taurus. But this week, there actually isn't a lot going on. So we're going to probably be feeling mostly the astrology that happens on November 3rd, on the Sunday before this week begins. And then also by the end of this week, we're going to be moving more towards the meaning of the next full moon. But before we get into all of that, I just want to remind you that you only have 7 days left to claim your all access pass to premium content in the app using the code Lilith30, because we just put Black Moon Lilith in the Chani app. So excited. I'm so excited for you to read the description of your Black Moon Lilith placement, for you to see the art that was created in honor of Lilith and this Black Moon Lilith placement in your chart. There's also 3 guided meditations / journeys that I recorded for you. There's a meditation library. There's a whole description of your chart. There are weekly readings. There's so much in the Chani app. If you are not yet a premium subscriber, use the code Lilith30 over the next 7 days. Get a free month of premium content. See what you think about the app in general, in totality. There's also readings for the entire year. You can think back on what's happened this year as you listen to them. We hope you enjoy the addition of Lilith, and we're so excited that you get to connect with this part of your chart. And we also have so much more in store that's going to be available on the app. So go check it out. Okay, back to our reading. So this is an in-between week, which might feel odd because, I don't know, there's probably a big event that's happening this Tuesday. And there's not a lot of astrology that's really commenting on it that's local to the moment. That's not good or bad. It just is. But I do want to back up and say that what happens on Sunday, November 3rd, really colors what happens all week this week. So I'm going to talk about that. And also, you might want to listen to last week's episode wherever you stream your podcasts or on YouTube, and just like rethink what we were talking about last week or see how it's playing out this week. But Sunday, November 3rd, Mars, while it's still in Cancer, at the very last degree of Cancer, is making an opposition to Pluto at the very last degree of Capricorn. And this is a very stunning particular setup. When anything lines up like this, and an opposition is pretty dramatic because it's just full of tension. It is 2 things sitting at the polar opposite of a situation, and both of them are relentless in going their own way. And so there's not an escape from it. It's just this situation that marks a polarization, a tension, a tug of war. And because Mars is involved, I mean, that's a signature of battle. You and me at odds, standing at opposite sides or being at opposite sides of a situation. Or it's a signature of totality or completion. If I'm here and you're there, then we are filling out the spectrum of situations. Because Mars is involved and because Pluto is involved, this does feel like a opposition with a lot of edge, and an opposition with a intention that might not be fully apparent all the time, because Pluto deals with things that happen underneath the surface. So when Pluto is involved in situations, we always have to be cognizant of what we do not know, what might be happening under the surface on a subterranean level. What might seem like a small problem or situation, but really be a big one, or what might seem like a big catastrophe, but actually is really quite small. So we want to look at the ways in which situations get magnified and if that magnification is appropriate, or if there's something that needs to be magnified that is not being magnified. So that's the Pluto of it all. Now, Mars is a planet that does deal with war, conflict, courage, energy, direction, and also theft. So we want to see if there's something that's happening here that we need to make bigger or smaller, that we need to understand what is happening below the surface of things, that we want to be like, what could be happening in the shadows here? What could be shady that's going on that is about this tense situation or a kind of polar opposites or something that deals with polar opposites that is worth fighting for, that we need to fight for. That happened on Sunday, the 3rd of November, that exact opposition. But it reverbs throughout the whole week because what happens is Mars is moving quite slow because it's going to station retrograde on December 6th. So we know that we're going to come back to this moment. This is not the full story. Mars will travel back to where it is right now in early January. So whatever happens this week, we're going to have to circle back around to in the beginning of January. That could be on a personal level. That could be on a collective level. We don't know. We have to live it out. But the important thing to do when Mars is in the picture is be very strategic about how we deal with conflict. Be very strategic with how we deal with an adversarial moment, and to be relentless in our pursuit of the thing that we're going for. So Mars transitions from Cancer to Leo on November 3rd. So we release this on November 3rd, depending on your country, time zone, etc. So you might be listening to this while Mars is still in Cancer. But by November 4th, Mars is in Leo. But it's still in that opposition with Pluto. It's just from a different position. It's just from a different sign. It's in a different style now. So on Sunday, as Mars transitions from Cancer to Leo, we go from a place of emotion and deep feeling and how we feel about what we're fighting for, what we're fighting against, or what kind of opposition we're in, to moving, I think, more strategically into a place of like, okay, well, how do I lead in this moment? Anything in Leo is going to at least comment on leadership because the sun rules Leo. The sun is the planet of leaders. And Mars is the planet of warriors, right? Like that's kind of how we can think about it. So the warrior in the sign of leadership or in the sign of how we glow, how we shed light, how we draw attention or what we draw attention to, still in this opposition with Pluto. It's out of sign, but it's still there. It charges it up. It fires it up. So the feeling of being in an oppositional kind of situation gets more heated as of Sunday night / Monday, but also the opportunity to show up as the leaders we want to be in moments of tension and possibly conflict, or just, a moment that's fraught and maybe polarizing is amplified. So how do you want to show up? What kind of leader do you want to be in this moment when you think strategically and long term? Because one of the things that the astrology is pointing to is the fact that whatever happens now is going to hang around for a while. Mars won't get back to Leo until April of 2025. So I'm not saying that we'll be contesting something from now until April. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what we're going to be doing. But I do want you to think about your own personal life. And also we can think about this collective moment as being engaged in something right now that is going to take us into the second quarter of next year. And the fights that we take on should be worth it. The things that we engage with and the ways in which we are like, okay, I want to commit to learning how to work through conflict in this way, in a way that makes me feel like I have integrity, in a way that I have honor in doing so, or in a way that's going to grow me and develop me as a human, as a soul, as someone who's experiencing this human life. How am I wanting to grow myself in this moment, especially if it's full of polarization or conflict or just challenge, right? If I'm up against some worthy opponents, great. How do I show up? How am I going to engage with this moment? How am I going to say, okay, this is obviously what is supposed to be happening because it's happening. So I must be the perfect person for this situation because I'm here. So I'll say yes to the situation. I will say yes to the assignment because it's in front of me. And that's, I think, the approach to this Mars-Pluto opposition that is very much sending reverb through not only this week, but honestly from now until it does it a second time, which is January 2nd of 2025, because Mars only moves into 6 degrees of Leo. And pretty soon, Pluto is going to move into Aquarius and hang out at that first degree of Aquarius. So they're not going to be far off. And they're going to perfect that opposition again on January 2nd as Mars retrogrades back to that place. And then they'll do it one more time at the end of April, but Mars will have backed far away from it. It's a different kind of situation at that point, but that is where it will complete. So we could think about whatever's happening now, finishing up by the end of April, but I really want to kind of keep our attention a little bit more local. And just for the sake of keeping it a little bit tighter, it's still a pretty big chunk of time. We're talking about November, December, and into the beginning of Jan. So we're in this tension point for a couple of weeks. So there might be stuff that's happening on a collective level that has that kind of tension or that kind of feeling of adversity, of challenge, and of being up against a worthy opponent, perhaps. And then we also want to think about how that's impacting our own personal life and what it is, again, that we're learning about moving towards conflict instead of moving away from it. We don't want to be in it all the time. We need rest, we need joy, we need friendship, we need support, we need love. And I think that that is also what I want us to buoy ourselves with. We need community. We need each other. We need to be like, okay, this is the tension point, but also this is the relaxation space. And I don't bring the tension into the place where I relax and restore and remember my humanity and get filled with love. To the best of my ability, I don't merge these things. I have a way of knowing when to get my gear on and get on the field or get in the ring or however you want to say it. And then I know how to take that off also, or I'm learning how to do that. Well, that's just one of the things I'd like us to practice. Okay, so the technical pieces of the astrology this week, besides that Mars-Pluto opposition that's hanging out and maybe causing a little bit of a hangover, is that on Monday, the sun, the planet of leadership and how we shine, makes a trine to Saturn, which is actually really lovely. It says, I can be a sturdy, wise source of leadership and counsel. So it's like a nice boost to things that feel grounded or people that feel grounded. And then nothing of note happens exactly between Monday and Saturday. And by Saturday, we've got a Venus square Neptune, which is really good for laying in bed all day, taking a nap, laying under a tree. I don't know what the weather's like where you are. It's really good for taking in a lot of art. It's really good for just musings and spacing out and ceiling therapy and not being in the tense battle place, not being in the place of conflict. This is the escape valve, right? Like this is where we're going to enjoy some things that are pleasurable and that are a chosen moment of reprieve. It's not great for like getting things correct and being really specific or even remembering what time the party starts, but it is really good for taking off some of our worldly roles and remembering that we're just energy hanging out in a meat suit, you know? Okay, so we've got the Mars-Pluto tension around for the rest of the year. We're not going to feel it every day, but I think it's really important to understand what's going on in your chart and how to understand this on a personal level. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go into the Chani app, if you have it. If you don't, download it and see where Mars is in your chart. And you'll know that by looking up the current sky. So go to the weekly tab in the app, go down to current sky, push on the button, and you'll get taken to your Mars horoscope, or you can read it on chani.com. Just to know like where Mars is in your chart and what it's doing. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to go to the transit section of the app and see if Mars is transiting anything in your chart. It'll be under short-term transits. And note that if Mars is transiting anything in your chart, it's going to do it a couple of times because Mars is going to go to 6 degrees of Leo, pause, stop, appear to stop, and then go backwards all the way to 17 degrees of Cancer. So the other thing you can do is also look at your chart and see the degrees of everything in your chart between 17 degrees of Cancer and 6 degrees of Leo. If you have anything 17, 18, 19, 20, to 30 degrees of Cancer, Mars is going to roll over it a couple of times. If you have anything between 0 and 6 degrees of Leo, Mars is going to roll over it a couple of times. And these planets or points, like if you're ascendant or you're midheaven or you're IC or anything like that is in one of these degrees between Cancer and Leo, Mars is going to parse out the situation for you quite explicitly over the next couple of months. Because we're in the pre-game show right now for the Mars retrograde. Mars, again, will station retrograde on December 6th, and it will be retrograde till the end of February. So it's a good, hefty chunk of time. And Mars retrogrades are excellent for understanding our energy, what gets in the way of a good feeling of energetic flow. They are excellent for helping us to understand where we need to grow in terms of working through conflict and what conflict is and what it isn't, what harm is and what it isn't, and also how to move into our life with some strategy. It's one thing I think that we're really lacking in a lot of different ways. And I'm talking about myself when I say that. Like, what's our thing that we ultimately want to win at, to get to? What's our strategy for getting there, right? Because it's great to have a dream and a hope and a wish for the future, but we need to have a strategy to get to it. And I think a lot of us feel disappointed that we don't have the thing, but I don't think we always know that that's up to us. If we're not there, it's not our fault that we're not there or that we're in the situation that we're in, but it's our responsibility to struggle, to strategize, to move towards the thing that we want. It's not fair, but it's what we've got. It's where we are. So what are we going to do about it? That's what Mars always asks us. It's like, okay, no, none of this is fair. Nothing in life is fair. What do you want to do with what you've got? How are we going to use what is close to you as a tool to get to the place that we want to go to? Because Mars wants us to be on the move. When it's retrograde, it's revealing the things that get in our way. It's revealing the ways in which we've got to gather our courage and direct our energy in a strategic way. And in Leo, again, that's so much about how we show up as leaders. It's so much about the ways in which we want to shine in this place of being engaged in conflict in a way that makes us feel like, yes, that was the thing I needed to do, and I showed up and I did it. And the rest I don't have control over. The rest is like, okay, well, I did my best. I showed up and I did what I could do. And I'm not the only one in this situation. Hopefully, we remember that we are collectively leading towards a goal. We are collectively strategizing, hopefully, towards a goal. We are collectively calling up our courage and each other's courage to move deftly towards the things we want to move towards. Y'all, thank you so much for the reviews you continue to leave in the App Store. They change the game for us, and they just really move us, and we read all of them. I want you to know. This one is called Cannot Live Without This Fabulous App. This review is so overdue. I adore Chani and her amazing, accurate, extremely intuitive app. It soothes my soul and brings me profound guidance and healing, and I'll often refer to it several times a day. I work with the daily, weekly, and yearly info, as well as the meditations, journal prompts, and Astro Planner. You get so much to work with. I especially love the real-time personalized transit section. Where else can you find all these nuggets of wisdom in one personalized app? And don't get me started on the outstanding workshops and cool products. Chani is truly offering a gift of wisdom and heart-centered healing. I would give up chocolate before my Chani app. I am an extremely satisfied and grateful daily user. Can't recommend highly enough. Much gratitude and healing, Maggie Nightshade. All right, y'all. That is the reading. I am sending everyone so much love, so many blessings. Even if you don't have anything, any planets or points between 17 degrees of Cancer and 6 degrees of Leo, Mars is still going to move between the house in your chart that contains Cancer and the house in your chart that contains Leo and kind of join them together. So I go through that in depth in the readings, in the weekly readings, but I also just want to say that you can read about it in your horoscopes and think about what the meanings of those houses in your chart are. All right. I'm sending you lots of love. And next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to think about the Mars in your chart and how to work with it using the app and using all the other tools you have available to you. Bye for now.